all of you? Well, I thought that we would have given us time to discuss more what the brilliant daughter of mine has just given, because it needs to be digested. But let me thank God for your life, that you are not ashamed of the gospel and using education as a means of evangelizing. In terms of size, not maybe. You look so much like my first daughter, who is a pediatrician. And I myself am, mommy's boy. So I have 2 boys and 2 girls. And sometimes I think the boys think that I discriminate between the girls and the boys. But the boys have to be hard on them and pamper the girls. It's a joy for me to be here. I don't know why I was invited, and to do me this honor or whatever to let me come after such a brilliant young delivery. In our language, how many here are Ghanaians? And okay, at least the majority. In Twi, we call, emre, that means it is soft or weak. And I'm Professor Emeritus, and I say, Professor Awayemre, a professor who is old and weak. So it's nice. One of the things I learned from her, sorry about my being on here, I was so blessed. I think that a lot of the Christian lecturers are hiding their light under a bushel. And there's a need probably to articulate the ways you have been able to impact your students with the gospel and integrate it, and many of them will be blessed. I have also taught from the primary school to the university level and become a rector, that's vice chancellor. And so I've taught at all levels. One of the most difficult places to share the gospel is at the university level. So in my retirement, I spent my time at the high school. I choose the line of least resistance. My wife and I founded Ghana Christian International High School in Ghana. We think that is the best secondary school in Ghana, but many of you don't know about it because we don't have to advertise. We are always full. So therefore, many people don't, and it's not in Accra, it is in this suburban area. And it's in Dodowa, Afienya Road, so we are in the bush, and we just reopened for the 2022-2023 academic year, and we have about 1,000 students, all boarders, and fortunately, being a private Christian school, you don't have to have a reason to share the gospel. In fact, everybody who comes, and some few Muslims and other people still insist on bringing their children, you sign that your child will be introduced to Christ, and here is Christ and Christ alone. And it's been a wonderful experience, and we enjoy it. And I hope that I'll be able to do it a few more years before I go home to be with the Lord. Even though, if some of you think that my gray hair, I'm going home soon, I may come to your funeral. My father died at the 115. So if I beat him by 5 years, that means I have about almost 46 years more ahead. And I don't think that many of you will be there. So let me once again thank Doc for the presentation. And next time you meet him in 2 years, you'll be calling a professor. But I won't wait for you to be Professor Emeritus, because I may be in heaven by then. Because you have to retire before you can. When you are a distinguished professor, you retire, you become emeritus. But that one is way too far. I may not be able to wait for you. More than education is the topic, and somehow we were not given direction so as to how to go about it. And my direction, I want to look at the role of education in national development, and especially Christian education. So that's where I am coming from. And I think that there's one thing everybody is in agreement, that education is important for national development. But how important is education, and what type of education is another thing. Interestingly, part of the problems we are facing in our part of the world is the wrong type of education, because education has another side. It can lead to inequality in the system. It can actually generate more open unemployment when people move from the informal sector to the formal sector and there's no formal job. So it can lead to social unrest. The people in my village don't go on strike. It's only the educated in Accra and Kumasi who go on strike. Have you ever seen anybody go on strike in your village? No. So you must be very careful. But I agree with Elizabeth King, who said that education is fundamental to development and growth. The human mind makes possible all development achievements, from health advances, agricultural innovations, to efficient public administration and private sector growth. One of the interesting countries which I used to stop by, because I was educated in Australia, that's where I did my doctorate, and used to stop a lot at Singapore. Singapore is basically a crop of a rock in the sea, and yet it is the third richest country in the world today and the best place to live, according to the latest ranking in the world. Switzerland, the Swiss have a saying which says that God gave them only two things: hills and John Calvin. In other words, they had the hills and had the one who preached the gospel. And it's quite important, and often our even national leaders invest in education largely for political reasons, not for development purpose. In other words, if you don't open a university in my region, then or my district, if you don't do our school and the rest. As a result, we are having more and more quote-unquote educated people, and yet we may not see the direct impact. The statistics show that when your gross enrollment ratio reaches a certain level, almost it correlates with your level of development. But African countries are not seeing that direct relationship. And because oftentimes our education is not teleological, in other words, not aimed at certain achievements. For example, if you go to the University of Ghana now and you ask, what's the purpose? What does the University of Ghana exist for? I doubt whether the majority of the lecturers can even give you the answer. He's a political science professor, so he produces political science students. Does Ghana need them? That's not the issue. So it's quite important, but there's no doubt at all that the right education is needed. Just this morning, I heard that a group, for example, Occupy Ghana, were going to picket the Auditor General because he must surcharge alleged corrupt civil servants who have been found to be corrupt or have misappropriated some resources and for him to make sure that they refund the money. So I was thinking about probably, eventually, dedicated people are responsible for corruption in Africa. But hopefully, dedicated people will be also who will fight corruption. And I'm hoping that we would get the positive results. Therefore, the question I ask is, what kind of education brings development? What kind of education? I think that there are three things that we must consider here. First is access. And that one, everybody, universal education, everybody having access to education. And just being educated itself has a positive impact. When I was working with the United Nations, I had a Burkinabe boss, Dr. Pierre Claver Damiba, and he made a statement I never forget. He says that the best condom in the world is education of the girl. And come to think about it, have you ever seen an educated woman who has 13 children? Those of you who have seen any of them, raise your hands. As soon as you educated them, they will make sure that they will know the number of children they have. So that's what he meant by, if you want birth control and other things, educate the woman. And when you educate the woman, so access is quite important. But access is not enough. You can produce so many educated people unemployed and actually lead to social unrest. The second has to do with the quality of education, because the quality is very, very important. In Ghana, we had a group, whether they still exist, Unemployed Graduates Association. What a shame. You went to the university, you finish, and you said that somebody has not given you a job, and I'm saying that they are not entitled to be employed if there's a job, and therefore you are forming an association of the unemployed. There's something wrong with the education, because the ordinary illiterate woman doesn't wake up and says that he's going to look, somebody must employ her. He finds something to do. And the other day I saw some nice suited person with a tie selling, roasted plantain near Fiesta Royal Hotel in Accra. I was in traffic and I couldn't stop in this 3-lane one. So later on, I wanted to find him. And that was the first time I saw him. I never saw him again, because I wanted to encourage him. And actually, if I found him, in case he hears me, he should come to me. We will do a multi-million roasted plantain business. Sure. But I'm sure people laughed at him and he stopped. And the third has to do, later on you see why I'm mentioning it, that has to do with relevance of the education. Relevance of education. In other words, is it contextually relevant? We should be at the cutting edge of education, but also it must be relevant to the context, solving problems. Because, let me tell you, nobody is going to solve the African problem other than the Africans. Because the other people will solve the problem if it's going to profit them. But gone are the days. And in any case, we claim that we are independent. So if you are independent, if you have your problem, Hakuna Matata, no worries. So it's quite important that we help people, and we'll come back to it. The way they are thinking and everything else should allow them to address. At the university, I've taught in at least the University of Ghana. Of course, even though I was rector there, I was teaching also because I love teaching at Gimpa, Pentecost University, and Ashasi. And I wouldn't mention, try to compare them. But it's quite interesting that the products of these four institutions are very different. And the average Ashasi student, where I spent my last 5 years, does not finish school and says that he's going to join an unemployment association. Either some people are looking for them to employ them immediately, or 10% of them immediately, their first job is to set up their own business. And it's quite. The fourth element of the education, for it to be of national importance, is the deployment, how you deploy them. In other words, the educated people, and it is, apart from the individual responsibility, it is a national responsibility. And the final one, as by way of introduction, has to do with the moral content of education. And it's I get worried when examination malpractice is becoming the norm rather than exception. In other words, they go to the university to learn how to cheat. And the past 2 weeks have been quite disturbed because a month, 2 halls in the University of Ghana, one of them, they call themselves vandals, and they are becoming barbaric, not just mere vandals, fight each other. And one of the iconic busts in the university has gotten lost. They have stolen it and hidden it. Mensa Saba, one of the, the respected people in colonial Ghana. Then the same happens in KNUST. And the worst is that 6 students are allegedly been now incarcerated and being tried for gang raping another student. So we must be very careful the type and how we deploy the moral content of education. In that regard, let me say that, and here I'm quoting from several studies of the World Bank, the foundation, first the foundational skills, even though some of us are associated with university education, I believe that is when the foundation is right in the primary level, and especially before the children are 7, is the most important one. When you have cemetery flowers like me, you have also grandchildren, both biological and god grandchildren. One of them, my god grandson, just spent a week and left yesterday. Then you start seeing the difference of the foundation. When my children who are now big people. The youngest, who is, there are four of them, now 36, and executive director. When they were young, just when I had my first child, I was a graduate student doing my doctorate in Australia. And as a Christian, I said, God, of course, you are never a parent until you are a parent. So I said, this is a new terrain. And even though my wife and I are trained primary school teachers in the first instance, having your child is different from being a teacher. So we pray that God should guide us. And indeed, He guided us. I was just walking through the bookshop at the University of Sydney, and I saw some cards in which there are numbers. Apparently 1, then there's the card, there will be 1 dot, 2 dots, 3, to teach children numeracy. Immediately the Holy Spirit put it in my heart. This is the key to teaching children how to read. So how do I convert the numbers into reading? And I landed with Lady Bird's series, and they had cards with it. I says, thank God. My first son was totally literate by the age of 5. And when I say totally literate, before he was 6, one day he came to me, Daddy, what is semen? Then when you are 5.5-year-old, it's asking you about semen. I says, where do you get this from? Oh, I says, I was reading he was reading the King James Version, and I came to a place where, Onan, yes, Judas' children, wow. Then I knew that he was totally literate. Except that he didn't understand semen. Good, he didn't understand it then. So, and it worked with all the 4 children. Do you know that all my 4 children are not as bright as your siblings? Those ones. I'm glad I'm old before they were born, because they would have devastated me totally. Because when I was little, I was supposed to be mentally defective. So that was my title in the village, the fool. So then when we came to Ghana, I told my friends, the method works. Oh, you sure are Africans. It's because you and your wife are teachers, special. He says, no, you try it. Everybody who tried it got the same results. Do you know that all my 4 children are scientists? But I never had looked after their homework. No extra classes. They had the misfortune of being raised on 4 continents. If you are an international diplomat, you are in Britain, South Africa, London, New York. So they were changing, which can be very traumatic for children when you change school systems. Some from January to December, then you change to June and all of that. Why? Because they were literate. So, of course, when your children finish primary school and they are going on, you forget about it until your children are gone. We are talking about school fees, paying university fees over there. It was quite expensive, except that the UN paid 85%, so you could afford your child to go to any university you wanted. Then, a few years ago, I started having grandchildren. And the older one, 5 years, came for a visit, was harassing the father and the mother, read to me. Then I said, it seems we have done children this service. What we learned, we didn't pass it on to the... So I brushed my old methodology. Within 2 months, the 5-year-old girl was literate. When the younger sister was 4, she was literate. When he started school, the parents had to go to conference because he said, what are we going to do with the school? What are we going to do with your children? Over there, they take particular interest in every individual, not the mass education. They live in Australia now. So they told me, I said, go and tell the teachers that my grandchildren are coming to school not to be taught by the teachers, but for socialization. So they go to school, and therefore they should just allow them to go at their own pace. So they may be in class 2, but then when it comes to mathematics, they join class 4. When it comes to, and they are having a ball. So now, my wife and I, to atone for our sins, have now written 9 books to help children in Ghana, and if the Nigerians are good, we will add them. So that children the average child will be able to be taught how to read, at least in English, between the ages of 5 and 6. So it is so fundamental. And the books are going to come out. This is only a sample so nobody should go. If you go to the shop, you won't get it. Hoping I can raise 200,000 CDs, which is only now about only $20,000, and have it printed, a few ones, and then I'll put it online, hopefully for free. This is called the Papa and Nana series because our grandchildren call us Papa and Nana, and this is book 5, and it comes with a set of cards. And it's not going to be like any other of the children's book you know. We found out that there are actually 100 words in English. If you know it, if you are not doing physics, chemistry, but ordinary language, 50% of all the words we use are the 100 words. And then there are 300 extra. And once you know those words, you are totally literate. And this is the cards are meant for that. And interestingly, the normal child can know all the 400. For example, the book 1 has got only 23 words. The whole book of about 30 pages, it's far more difficult to write than the economics books that makes you a professor. Because, for example, this is the book 5, uses all the words in books 1 to 4 must be repeated, and you cannot go outside them. And then you introduce new words. Here we have only 38 new words in the book 5. And when you introduce any new words, you must use it at least 6 times in the book. But the point I'm saying is this: the foundation, much of the problem of education in our part of the world is the foundation. And the Bible says in Psalm 11 verse 3, when the foundation is weak, what will the righteous do? What's your answer? Because the Bible didn't answer. It didn't answer. Yes, anybody who will attempt an answer? When the foundation is weak, what should the righteous do? And the Bible ends with a question mark. Any attempted answer? When you have a house and the foundations, you have to fix it. Because if you don't fix it, your whole house will collapse. And that's what we are having in education. And so it's very, very important that children very early, and I take early to be 5 years, latest by 7, to be literate. And it's amazing when you do so, even the mediocre looks like a genius. interestingly, that is also the age around 7 and 8. Most children are ready to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. They may not express it in the way of, come forward and accept the Lord Jesus Christ, but their level of comprehension is such that, and they will love reading, not like some of us, where even as professor, reading is a work to do. All my 4 children can read an average of 200-page book in 2 hours, whereas it will take me a week. And sometimes they have to edit my writing, and they laugh at me, say that I'm writing Shire English. That's the English from my village, Shiremwasi. But I say that I'm not ashamed. You have a professor as your father. I had a peasant as my father. I've done well. The second thing, the foundation, the second generic thing that has to do is that our countries have to do smart education investment. Because our countries are, though poor, are spending a lot of money in education. In Ghana, 4% of GDP is spent on education. And 23 to 24% of government budget, quarter, goes to education. Another quarter goes to health. And about 40% to service debt. We won't tell you why we got those debts. Don't ask me. And that is where we are. So we are left with between 5 and 7% for all development effort. But it's a very expensive business to educate. But for education to be developmental, it has to be smart education, a smart investment. For example, the pressure politically is to build infrastructure, which is important. You need infrastructure. But this day and age, for example, do you have to build big libraries? Do you have to? No. Is it if we are getting the foundations right, most of the subjects, apart from the sciences and other things, Open University will do. ICT, again, when you spend so much money teaching people by, as my daughter was saying, learning by rote, having the same notes which was 10 years ago, it's a waste of, not a smart investment. We have a branch of our school, Ghana Christian International High School, in my village. And the first thing we did is to have a modern ICT and then invest in Wi-Fi. Do you know that village school is a real village? The village is not on the map of Ghana. In fact, since I was born, we migrated from the bush to come to the roadside. A village that is mobile. Last year, the school might have been the best secondary school results in the whole of Ghana. Everybody passed. And only one person who didn't do well got C6 in one subject. And another person, 2 people got, that's in English, which is understandable if you come from my village and you pass English. In fact, the next village where I attended middle school, the name of the village is English is Heavy. Prof. Those Ghanaians know that. That's the official name of this. So I went to middle school in English is Heavy village. And then 2 people got C5 in mathematics. Everybody not only passed, but they got either A1 or minimum of C4. In other words, the type of investment is not so much the old stuff. Of course, I like improved infrastructure. But for example, at the basic school level, the one that they are talking about is not important. Not the most important. Schools on the tree, and that type of things. Lack of furniture. Of course, children need furniture to sit on, but that's not important. When you follow this method under a tree or on the bridge, and 2 months the child knows how to read. Every material is an educational material. They will read the newspaper, they will do everything. So we must think about having smart investment. The third in that regard has to do with the fact that at a certain level, up to the secondary school, and I support fully free education up to that level, I will tell you, but with a difference. When you must give equal opportunity to people to a certain level, especially to the WASI level, the O level in other countries. After that, you must insist on merit, because at the tertiary level, you want excellence and people who will contribute to society and be able to lift the society up. In my country, Ghana, we have an education system which is quite similar to many places. Is the basic education, we have the kindergarten 2 years, we have the primary 6 years, we have the secondary, junior secondary 3 years, we have the senior secondary 3 years, and the university 4 years. Being somebody who is involved with education from the primary to the university level, supervising PhD theses, which I'm now glad that I don't have to be doing much of it. Now I don't supervise them, I grade them, and only when they are ready for promotion to become professor, you may sit on the panel. So there's a certain stage when you can enjoy life. And not. I've found that in almost all African countries, in my country in particular, the biggest challenge is quality basic education. We tend to think that is the university, when the foundation is not right, you have problem. And among the crises of education system in Ghana, I think that is the basic that we have to. And especially there's a phenomenon which 2 years ago the World Development Report reported upon it. They call it schooling without learning. In other words, that is how the study of the country, especially Ghana, the title, schooling without learning. In other words, basically, the teachers are babysitting. And that the average primary school graduate in this country is illiterate. And it has to do with lack of supervision and accountability. And the teachers, because they are not held responsible, because every child properly taught with the right pedagogy, love reading and numeracy. Sometimes some people think that Oh, some people don't love mathematics. It's not true. Everybody loves mathematics. It's only how they are taught. How many people who hate mathematics go to the market and leave their change? Have you seen one? If you think he doesn't know it, you cheat them on the marketplace. Everybody. I teach a lot of, that's my personal crusade, how to help people to get rich. Because it's so easy to become a millionaire. It's a matter of compound interest, so long as you. And I say that if people only knew that compound interest is their key to wealth, everybody will love it. But when we were being taught compound interest, it says the formula, principal equals, before you are aware, you get a cane. And there was a lady, Hannah Bade, in my class, who always was being beaten. How could you beat somebody because he doesn't understand mathematics? It's not her fault. You didn't teach them mathematics. In our school, in my village, we serve only 12 villages around my village. You know, people who have come from public school. One came, oh, just fill the form. Yes, here your village name should be written for those who speak Twi. Or see, Adei mmra de mean to mean super. To with, as for my village name, which is called Adei mmra, I cannot spell it. After 9 years of education, cannot spell his village name. The average person, we don't take the BECE as entrance. It's just a host. When they come, we test them. The average BECE, not those in the town, the cities and the international schools, get not more than 10%. And this is, but we still admit them, because if I don't admit them, nobody will come to my secondary school, which was meant to be an evangelistic tool in the village. And if they don't come, so we have created what we call the access year. We admit everybody, but you spend 1 year for us to help you overcome your foundation. And you know what we do? Those who don't get more than 30% in the subjects, we know that we have a foundational weakness. That 1 year, we start teaching them mathematics from what level? Class 1. And the people said, oh, why are you going to start from class 1? He says, please. Because in mathematics, if you have a gap, you cannot build on it. And I said, no, you start from class 1. So when they come, we give them class 1 mathematics and go through it. By 1 week, they understand it, of course. Then we go to class 2, maybe 7 days. We go to class 3 until they get to the 9th grade by the middle of the year. And then they will revise it so they have access here. Then the English. Just God gave me an insight. One day I went to visit them. I live in Accra, but I visit them quite often. I was walking, when we started the school 8 years ago, I was walking on the veranda. And the children, that the first year, they were so quiet and angelic. I said, this is not normal. You go to every class, everybody is quiet. And the teachers are teaching physics, mathematics, everything. So I called my teachers. I said, you know what is happening? This is what, sir? I said, they are quiet because they don't understand anything. Nothing. Stop it. So the first term, we stopped teaching physics, chemistry, everything. Only 3 subjects. And say, if whether you are a chemistry teacher or not, you are going to be an English teacher for 1 term. And we divided the children into groups of 5 per teacher to start going through the basics like this and other things. After 1 month, I went there, and when they are in class and I'm passing, they are smiling. Now they can understand a few. And in 4 years, they come up as a top, and 2 of them just graduated with top degree. something cum laude with MasterCard scholarship at Ashasi University, both in engineering. So there is importance for us to make sure that those gaps are filled. Let me give 2 comments and then because of time. Part of, do you know some dangerous phenomena going on in Nigeria and Ghana and all the other countries? Last year, for example, I think 54% of WASI students passed mathematics, and I think 52 passed English. But since they don't overlap, that means that those who passed both in English and maths may be about 40. In other words, about 60% did not qualify. Any educational system that 60% at the secondary school fail is in a very serious developmental problem. And we are going to produce an army of semi-illiterates who also, I go to my village, they say they have gone to secondary school, go to farm, you know. I went to Achimote school and I went to Prembe College, and you said to me, I'm a farm laborer. And yet, and the reason is very simple. Now we have free education. Some of the classes in the secondary school are about 60. So the teachers, now imagine those who have come from my village, who were sitting in the class and were quiet because they didn't understand anything. Now they go to, by virtue of raffle, you know, what they call it, placement. What placement? Yes, the place. They go to Prembe College. So they go and sit among 60 students, sometimes 70 per class. The 40%, most of them pass because they had a good foundation in private schools in the cities, or their parents could afford. The teachers there, they earn about twice their salary from afternoon classes. Go to Presec, they charge about 400 Ghana cedis because one of my assistants had a child there. I've forgotten a month or a term in order for them to have supplementary classes. So the people from the village, you have a double problem. You come with a weakness and your parents don't have, they are not there anyway. Me, when I was going to training college in Sehui also, my parents don't know even where Sehui also is. So how come they come and give you pocket money, or let alone go? So actually, the reason why we are having these results, and that is consistent. For the past 20 years, there was only 1 year that 56% passed. So it is a pandemic. And that's what we are. After 3 years, whether you like it or not, you go out of the system because we are not allowed to repeat. And that is what is happening. Unless we fix the base. But so free education, secondary school education is good, and nobody should be left out in this world and age, but we must make sure that they benefit them. Again, I supported free education, senior high school, 100%. But now I feel that it must be tweeted. And the reason why it must be tweeted is the fact that no country, including America and Japan and Britain, can educate secondary school people in the boarding school. It's too expensive. What we need, as they did, was to now have quality community schools. And within, say, every 10 basic schools should have in the middle of them a secondary school, which is a day school. But quality, because you have the school in the middle, secondary school in the middle, You have good infrastructure in the classrooms, laboratory. Wi-Fi is a must. In my village school, there's a Wi-Fi there, so they have access to internet like anywhere else. But it is rather the teachers who should stay on the compound, and then the students come. And you can then have it all over the country. As community secondary, quality secondary school is the answer. In other words, if you don't do it, there's a discrimination anyway. Why should somebody have a boarding free secondary school and another have free day school? Are they not all Ghanaians or Nigerians? So there's a need for us to look at it. Finally, it seems I knew that I will be short of time. So I say that I'm not going to touch higher education, except that I put some bullets there, and I'm going to read the bullet like a pope pontificating without commenting on them. First of all, it is good to have a higher gross enrollment ratio, but if it's at the expense of quality at the higher level, don't. Massification of tertiary education, university level, will undo Africa. You have to rather make sure that the middle is quality, they have vocational education, and make sure that the quality of higher education is unchallenged. Second, as I said, I won't give you comments. They say most of our universities have leadership challenge. We inherited a British system whereby in the olden days, the crown endowed the university. So therefore, a vice chancellor, your job is to make sure that the syllabus, teachers, and other things. No, at this moment, we need entrepreneurial academic leaders. If you go to University of Ibadan, it is probably one of the biggest enterprises in Nigeria. So as University of Ghana, with about 4,000, 5,000 direct employees, with hundreds of millions of dollars annual budget, with student population of 100,000, the qualification to become a vice chancellor should no longer be a professor. Should be an experienced, intelligent business, human resources manager. If you don't, we are going to be in trouble. In any case, Harvard University will not look for a president looking for a professor. No. Harvard Business School, even business school alone, will not do so. That is why Harvard Business School has more investment than the average African country. Harvard Business School. They separate the academic from the managerial leadership. And our voice here simply, do you know why the professors want to become vice chancellors? Because the conditions of the vice chancellor is so good. Vis-a-vis the ordinary professor, at least 50% salary. I've chopped some before. No, listen, it's a small cost to pay. Make the pro-vice chancellor the head of the academic and pay him the current, benefits of a vice chancellor. Simple. It will be a holy bribery. And then make sure that the university president, so change the name, they think that the vice chancellor is academic, change it or managing director of the university, and put in the equivalent of who is the one having the cement giant in Nigeria? Dangote. Yes, people with that mind should be managing now Lagos University or Bafemi Awolowo and Ibadan. If we are to go and so this is, I say, again, there's a need to discriminate as to entrance. in Ghana, you know that if somebody wants to do science and he has an aggregate of 17, and somebody wants to do dancing with an aggregate of 8, the scholarship goes to the dancer. No, you can't do that. You determine your national priority and stop just this general scholarship and target that. And of course, let me end by saying that that will require a national development plan which has outlined where the nation will be going in 20, 30 years. And therefore, these are the type of resources. Because when you are training a young person today, you are not training them for today. You are training them for the world that you will not live in. And that is why critical thinking, creativity becomes a much more important element than even the subject they do. And above all, we must give them Christ so that we train men and women of integrity, even though I believe that much of that has to be done when it comes to moral education, evangelization, has to do at the lower level before they get there. I thank you for this time of sharing, and God bless you.